What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to do one more on the Game Awards. In terms of we got the nominees, we got the categories. This entire day has really just been about the Game Awards on Podcast Now, and I promise I'm going to leave it alone. Besides, we're going to do predictions and things like that, but in terms of the nominees, categories, whatnot, we'll leave it at today. But I got an interesting comment I do want to kind of clarify, and I think it's an interesting topic in general. Like, what do the Game Awards mean, right? What do they mean to me? What do they mean to other people? How much stock do we put them in? I do think it's a good topic. So, I think it came just out of kind of confusion. Hopefully I can clear things up. So, in the earliest of video, yeah, I do kind of contradict a little in terms of, I say that I don't care about the Game Awards, right? Don't care about like what gets what game. And yet, I get upset if Elden Ring shows up, for a certain category, or, when Antea and Red aren't for best performance, things like that. I think most people get it, but maybe some don't. That's okay. I think it leads to an interesting discussion. For me personally, okay, I've said this a lot before, but we'll explain it out here. For me personally, I don't look 2 years from now, okay, when I'm perusing Amazon, when I am out at Target, when I'm doing all these things, I don't look at a game and say, oh my God, that is the game that won Best Art Direction in 2021. I don't know if there's a single person on planet Earth that actually does that. I think that's taking it very, very seriously. I think that's making, and I will say this though, when it comes to like Oscars and Emmys and things like that, and even the Game Awards, like Jeff Keighley himself, I do think there's a degree that they want you to do that. And that's just speculation. I do, especially the Hollywood angle. Now, the Game Awards is trying to do kind of this taking a left path instead of right, and kind of doing Hollywood, but kind of doing other stuff. Like, it's very clear Jeff wants to be accepted by the Hollywood group, hence why he has all these famous celebrities that come in and really shouldn't be there, hand out awards, announce things. I've kind of gone over that before, right? I do think that's more of a Hollywood thing, but the Game Awards is becoming that. And I do think, generally, yeah, when you look at a movie or a thing like Parasite, right, and you say, oh, that won 7 awards, I would say most people do not care. And you do have to kind of be careful with that at times because, as I've said, I try to cover all bases. There might be some people that go online and say, okay, well, like I'm looking for a game and like, well, what won Best RPG? What won Game of the Year is the big one, right? What was Game of the Year? Now that's highly subjective, and it's also, I think it can change depending on what website gives it. Pretty much every website under the sun does their own Game of the Year awards, right? I'm going to do it. I've been doing it here and there over this channel's history even, right? Like, you look at those things. So, I mean, they change based off which website. Sometimes it's unanimous, right? Sometimes Elden Ring 2022, right? Elden Ring wins 96 Game of the Year awards, right? You say, okay, that might be a good game. You can kind of base it a little bit more because it does mean something, or it might mean something, right? So I hope this is all going to go somewhere, hopefully in my mind. But again, to kind of cover all bases, like for me, when I look at these categories, I'm looking at them down the line, it's not even necessarily about right now. There's a part of it where it's like, yeah, I want certain games to get recognition. I can admit to that. Like I really like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I really loved Astro Bot. I really love Stellar Blade. I really, certain actors, in roles like Brianna White and Hannah Tell. You want to see some of these people represented. You want to see some of these people win. That's kind of it though. Like where I'm at, that's kind of where I draw my max. Like, I'll get mad when like a moral kind of rule is broken, when they have a DLC be included in some of these things. I think there's a reason to talk about that. I think, when Silent Hill, I think gets like miscategorized, I get a little upset. But I mean, honestly, that's really where it ends. I'm talking to you guys. We're making a video. We're in the gaming culture. In a week from now, in a month from now, when I go back to look at Silent Hill 2, am I even going to remember that it was a nominee for Best Action Adventure Game in 2024? Is that something that's going to come to mind? I can tell you. I mean, I might remember it because I do have weirdly good memory where I do remember a lot of stuff, and I sometimes can remember like weird facts. Will I always remember that? Probably. But I mean, do most people remember that? No. Now, another angle I guess I wanted to nail is, again, to kind of nail all sides, I'm fully aware of like what these awards mean to the companies. I mean, you have stories every year of, these awards, because of how many millions of people watch and even just kind of like larger news attention, games that get nominated a lot and games that win a lot, they can see increased sales. So financially, even, we're going to talk about kind of the moral standpoint in a second, but financially, there actually may be a benefit. Like, it's kind of been proven, and it's always, like, I remember every single year, it's always talked about, like, yeah, if a game wins like 4 or 5 awards, now I think there's only like 2 or so games that are nominated. I think Astro, and is it Stellar Blade? Astro and Final Fantasy. I think those 2 are nominated 7 times. I mean, they might be nominated against each other, so they can't win all 7. But if one of them wins 4 or 5, like that could mean something, right? And again, like that kind of goes back to, well, if a game wins like an offshoot award, right? It wins best performance and it wins nothing else, or it wins best audio design, or it wins best accessibility. Is that going to make like 100,000 more people buy the game? No, probably not. Like 99% sure it's not. But if the game wins like 4 or 5 awards, okay, maybe that does matter. And then you go look at IGN, you go look at some of the bigger outlets or whatever, and maybe it wins there too. And that can hype it up to you, okay? But financially, like, it has been shown, companies do pay attention to it. Like, it does actually matter. And then I also don't want to take away kind of the humanity of just actually like winning an award. You know what I mean? Like, there's a difference between us as consumers kind of watching, but then like it's not that difficult, I think, to put yourself into that situation. Like, if you're one of these people, if you worked on one of these games, like, there's tens of, if not hundreds of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands, if not more. There's a lot of people in the gaming industry. So if your game had like 300 people working on it and it wins an award, I mean, that is a big deal. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, if I won an award for something, you know what I mean? I don't know, maybe some people don't like the material possessions or whatever it might be, right? Everybody's going to be slightly different, but I can also concede on that. And actually, I've never said anything to contradict that. It could mean something to them. When I talk about like it not meaning things, or maybe it shouldn't mean things, I'm not really talking about that aspect. Again, like, if you get a game nominated, if it's your game, right? You worked on Astrobot and it wins 3 awards, you should feel good about yourself. Now, I think you can say all that and then also still say that people shouldn't really put a lot of stock into it. But I think it's just a reflection. It's a reflection of what some of these critics think, and that's also it. You know what I mean? That's another. I mean, there's so many kind of layers to this. That's why I wanted to do a video on it. This is a group of panelists. Now, yes, we have a vote. I really don't think our vote matters all that much. It ultimately comes down to that panel, right? There's like hundreds of people on that panel, I believe they said. So, those journalists vote for the winners of each category. We probably have like 2% say, and then a game gets, award. So it also does kind of go back even to like Metacritic scores or just review scores in general. Like, these are the same journalists, right? The same, maybe not like literally everybody, but the same 100 people, or a group of 100 people that gave Astrobot, a 94 on Metacritic. So they said it was an incredibly good, they're just kind of coming back at the end of the year and saying, oh yeah, well, now you won all these, you won all these awards now. So I don't know, like, to me, it doesn't really, it reinforces like an idea, but it doesn't mean much, to me specifically. I'll end it the same way I kind of started it. Like, from a moral thing, or, when I'm making these videos, yeah, I get kind of hyped up. And yeah, if I think a game doesn't deserve to be in a certain category, or something gets miscategorized or whatever it might be, or Elden Ring, the Elden Ring thing kind of upsets me. But there's the thing, okay? Does it really upset me? I mean, like, I think it should be changed. I don't think it should go that way. You're in it that night when the game wins, but I can promise you, okay, again, like, looking down the line, if you quizzed me, and again, I have like a weird memory, so I might be able to do it, but if you quiz me, like, name their game of the year, the biggest one is game of the year, right? Do we really remember best audio design from 6 years ago? If you can tell me without looking, go ahead and try. If you even just do game of the year of the last 10 years, can you do it? I can probably get most of them, but can you do it? And then, because, I'm chronically here, right? But then also, does it matter? Does it matter what the Game Awards gave Game of the Year every single, and that kind of goes back to my central thing, right? It's like, well, Alex, stick to a lane. Do you care or do you not care? I care, like, in the moment slightly, you know what I mean? Like, and it's kind of it. I'm not going back and saying, oh, Dragon Age, Dragon Age must be a certain way because it won Game of the Year 10 years ago. I mean, I remember that because it's 2014, it's 2024. Like, my memory just works like that. And Dragon Age: The Veilguard kind of brings back those memories. But, when I'm playing it, I don't know. I try to not really base things off of, like, I make comparisons. If a game feels like another game, I'll kind of compare. But, if Dragon Age is meant to be Inquisition is meant to be like a 94 on Metacritic or a 92 or an 89, or when I'm playing it, I'm not necessarily like I'm thinking of it as good, bad, okay, fine. That's why I also don't do numbers, right? Because I'm not looking at, okay, well, this game's supposed to be a 9. Is it actually a 9? That's not really how I do things. Now everybody's different, but I mean, this is specifically, it's selfish. It's about me, right? So that's kind of my stance on it. I don't really, I think I can say that very confidently. I don't really care because I'm not looking back even 2 weeks after the awards and saying, oh, the game all of a sudden has extra merit because it won that award. Again, though, that's not everybody. And also, it might compound if it wins more than one award. If it wins 6 awards, okay, people's eyes are going to be. It still doesn't really matter for me, especially this, okay? One final thing to add on to it. It doesn't matter for me what other people rate it. And I think that's something that people have got to remember during these times. I mean, I won't tell you what to do. You do whatever you want. But I would suggest, it should be about you. And it's not to sound like narcissistic or to sound selfish. It's your money. These are not free things. Like some games are free, I guess, right? So like a free-to-play game. But, these are not free things that like everybody can experience on like a level playing field, right? Where like everything really is even. These are things that cost money. These are things that are escapist type things. These are things that are entertainment. These are things that are not necessary for survival. You do not need to play a game. I mean, I kind of do, maybe in my blood, but I mean, we really don't need it every day, right? So where am I going with this? Well, at the end of the day, we are choosing individually to spend our money on these things. And that's always kind of what comes back. Like, yeah, you can trust people. And, hey, I hope people trust me. People do trust me. And I'm honored by that. And I try to do right by you guys. When you say, hey, I want to know your opinion on a game, I give it to you. And I try to give it as plainly as I can and as honestly as I can because I respect that trust. So you can trust people. And, you could say, well, I have similar opinions to this person. So maybe if they like a game, I would like a game. But at the end of the day, you are the one spending your money. I'm the one spending my money. A game that wins 16 Game of the Year awards, like online, like if it doesn't win it, to me, it doesn't really matter. And that's not coming. It is coming from a selfish kind of point of view, but it's also not because it's like, well, you kind of just have to watch out for your own money. It's your money to say, well, okay, does the game getting 16 Game of the Year awards, or okay, more realistically, does a game that wins 5 awards at the Game Awards, does that suddenly deserve your money more now or less or the same? And that depends on you. And it always comes back to you. And that's why it doesn't matter. That's kind of the end of the story, right? No matter what happens, no matter what game wins what, number one, chances are you're not even going to remember it come January. Chances are you're definitely not going to remember it come next year, right? And then ultimately, does that change? And then why? If a game wins like 3 awards and you were thinking, that game's fine, then it wins 3 awards and you think, okay, well, maybe that game's good all of a sudden. Why? I would ask yourself that, right? Now, like for me, I don't really have any kind of doubts on that one. Normally, I'm won over by like what you see. Not what you see like with winning an award, what you see with like the game. You know what I mean? I don't know, like just to me personally, winning 6 awards, if I look at the game and say, you know what, that game's just not for me. That's okay. That's okay for a game to not be for you. You look at the game, you say just something about that. I don't think I'm going to enjoy playing it. Oh, but it won 6 awards. Well, that's good. Again, good for the game. I hope it sells more because of it. I hope the people that made it feel good about themselves. I mean, that's all true, and that's something that I believe. Like, that's all great. But that doesn't really change. Like, if I'm going to get it, I'm going to get it. If I'm not going to get it, I'm not going to get it. It doesn't really change stuff. But again, as I've really, I think, lightened my stance as the last couple years really has gone by, because there's people in the comments that have even told me, like, hey, I am one of those people that, I have opinions, and I want you guys to, have your own thoughts and have your own opinions on things. But, some people aren't chronically online. Some people, can only watch so much of a game. They need to rely on people that they trust, that they think that, they're kind of in line with each other. If they say they like a game, then they like a game. I do think we should get away from that, and it should really be just on like personal choice, but it is the way that it is. And like everybody's life is different. You only have so much time. I get it. So I have lightened on that stuff, and, that's changed a little bit, in terms of how I think about the Game Awards. But, it's fun. It is what it is. I get into it like in the moment, but you quiz me. If you quiz me specifically, I might pass the quiz, but if you quiz most people, I think most people are not going to remember what game won what thing. They're going to remember, they might actually remember the review scores over it, to be honest with you. And that's something probably Jeff Keighley does not want, right? He wants to remember that this game won best multiplayer. He doesn't want you to remember, oh, that game got an 84 on Metacritic, right? But most people actually probably think the opposite. Most people probably look at the score and say, oh, this is an okay game based off the number. And they don't say, oh, that's an okay game based off that it won an award. And actually, I'm glad I kept talking, just kept rambling, because I actually think I feel like that's an okay point. I do think people, correct me if I'm wrong, I do think people generally look at games and say they base it off the meta. If they're going to base it off of like just one thing, which I don't think they should, but people do it, right? If they just base it off of one thing, I think they base it off the score. I don't think they base it off of, oh, that got 25 Game of the Year awards. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to end on that point. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on. I hope to see you all on the next one.